This year is called Ruth's Field of Dreams. I guarantee you it's much better than the movie. Better than Kevin Costner's Field of Dreams, Ruth's Field of Dreams. Before we get to it, we know that Parshas Bamidbar is always read the week of Chag HaShavuot. What's the connection between Bamidbar and Chag HaShavuot? Parshas Bamidbar. The Keshet HaMatan Torah. In order to have a connection to the Torah, you have to be like a midbar. A midbar is shafal, right? A midbar is humble, no airs about it. So a person has to make himself like a midbar, without any pretenses, without any airs of arrogance, like a bear in midbar, in order to become the Torah. And a midbar, we know, is free. It doesn't cost any money to live in a midbar, right? So the Torah is also free. Right? You could be a Talmud Chacham, you have to invest time and effort. So a person has to be like a midbar. Parshas Bamidbar contains no mitzvot. Isn't that strange? Parshas Bamidbar, dafki the parsha that is always read. When? Before Matan Torah. We think it should contain many mitzvot, but it's strange. The parsha Moshe right before Matan Torah always doesn't contain not even one mitzvah. Isn't that strange? So what's the answer, says the Ramban? In Parshas Bamidbar, there's a census. Doesn't God know how many Jews they are? Says the Ramban to teach that every Jew counts. It says over and over again, B'mispar Shemot. B'mispar Shemot, it says in the Parsha. What does mispar mean?
Number.
But the word mispar is the same root as the word sapir. A sapphire, precious stone. What does the word svira, the mispar, have to do with what? Sapir. Remember that song? We all shine on. Every Jew, says the Ramban, is a precious sapir to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Every Jew is precious stone to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the Mispar Shemot, right before Chag HaShavuot, Hashem wants to demonstrate that every one of us is a precious sapphire to Him. And, so how come there's no mitzvot? Because what's the message? That every Jew is a sapir, that every Jew deserves our derech eretz, since we're all precious to God, like a sapir. So we have to give each other derech eretz. And we know derech eretz, kodma laTorah. So therefore, this week's parsha is always read before Matan Torah. It contains no mitzvot, because there's something that comes before mitzvot. Derech eretz, kavod, to treat every Jew like a sapir. That's kodma laTorah. Interesting. Now we know the end of one book has to connect to the new book. Parshas Vayikra has to connect to the beginning of Bamidbar. In Parshas Vayikra, we had Usfarta Lechem Yimochvat HaShabbat. Parshas Emor, to count days. Parshas Emor, Usfarta Lechem, count every day. We count each day to make each day count. Usfarta Lechem, days. Again, the word Svira, Avram, from the word Sapir, that each and every day has to be cherished like a precious sapphire. Usvartem lechem. Today is the first day, the rest of your life. So Svartem lechem, count days. We count the days to make each day count. From the word svira, to cherish, treasure, treat each day as it would be what? A precious sapphire. Then we move on to Parshas Bahar. We're counting years. After Parshas Em, we're counting days. Parshas Bahar, we have what? Counting Shemitah, counting years, counting Yovel, 7 times 7. To cherish each day, to then cherish each year. Again, the word was Svartem. Days, then we graduate counting years. Then, the most important, Parshas Bamidbar, B'mispar Shemot. What's more in counting than It's important to treasure and cherish a day. What a difference a day makes. And it's more important to count years, to cherish each year like a sapphire. But Achron Chavid, what do you have in Parshas Bamidbar?
Individuals.
To count people. To cherish each yid like a sapphire. The message of Bamidbar for us is to stand up and be counted. For Kabbalah Satorah, to give kavod to each yid, says the Ramban. Each Jew shines like a sapphire, the Mispar Shemot. That's the message before you get to Kabbalah Satorah, that Derech Eretz Kodma Torah. Therefore, this Parsha Bamidbar is always read right before Shavuot. Now, Bamidbar has to be connected to the Gilat Ruth. There are no coincidences. What is the theme of Bamidbar connected to Megillat Ruth? There has to be a connection. In Bamidbar we read, the Eile told us Aaron and Moshe. These are the offspring of Aaron and Moshe. So Rashi is puzzled. You promised to give me the offspring of Aaron and Moshe. Ve'eno maskir ela b'nei Aaron. But you only mentioned Aaron's kids. V'nikru toldot Moshe. And Aaron's kids are called Moshe's offspring. Why? Lefi shelimdam Torah. Because Moshe Rabbeinu taught Torah to the Bnei Aaron, they're considered what? His offspring. Melamed. Shekola melamed is ben chavedo Torah. To teach it, anyone who teaches his friend Torah, mal olav hakatuv ki ulu yolado. Why are Aaron's kids called whose kids? Moshe's kids. To teach, if you teach your friend Torah, it's like you gave birth to him. Since Moshe taught Torah to whom? Aaron's kids also, they're considered Moshe's kids. Right? What's the kesher to Ruth? At the end of the Gilat Ruth, Ruth has a baby boy, Mazel Tov. But the Navi says, we'll see soon, Yulat ben Lenomi. Is that a typo, Michael? Chas v'sholom. Who wrote the book of Ruth? Shmuel Hanavi. So he should have said Yulat ben LaRuth. But it don't say that. It says Yulat ben Lenomi. So I want to make the connection. Since Naomi taught her grandson Torah, it's as if she what? Gave birth to him. Connection to Pashat Bamidbar, no kominky dinky. Just like Aaron's kids are called Moshe's kids, because Moshe taught them Torah, so too, Yulat ben Lenomi, we'll see soon inside. Since Naomi taught her grandson Torah, the Navi says that who is his mama? Not just his baba. Naomi, Yulat ben Lenomi. So in my humble opinion, it's a strong connection between Megillat Ruth and what? And Pashat Bamidbar. Naomi taught him Torah, it's like she gave birth to him. And therefore it says Yulat ben Lenomi, just like in the Parsha of the week, it says that Aaron's kids are what? Children of Moshe. Sounds fine and good. But how come Moshe's kids are not mentioned?
Because he left them home.
Surely there's a saying in Yiddish, Ashistes Kinder Gayen Burvis. How do you translate that in English?
Cobbler, shoemaker.
A shoemaker's kids don't have any shoes.
Go barefoot.
Go barefoot. You have the same cipher says, buddy.
They don't wear shoes.
Moshe Rabbeinu, who taught Torah to all of the Yidden, somehow his own children were out to lunch. That happens. Some Sofer says, remember, they came from a broken family. Rashi says that what? Why did Miriam speak Lashon Hara against Moshe? Because Moshe divorced Zipporah. Rashi said, Basha Baloishcha, next Seder, a couple of weeks. Miriam was upset. You broke up a happy home. You divorced Zipporah. The kids now come from a broken home. And Nebuch, they were not even in the loop. So the great Moshe Rabbeinu, his own kids were neglected. So much so that if you look in the book of Shoftim, it says Yonatan ben Gershon ben Moshe Rabbeinu became a reform rabbi, lo yaleinu. Yonatan ben Gershon ben Moshe. Moshe Rabbeinu's own grandson became a Reform rabbi, unfortunately. There's a price to pay. What? The book of Shoftim. What? Anyway.
He didn't have a grandfather. Naomi was a grandmother, but his grandfather was Yisroel.
Right? Okay? And shoemakers' children sometimes go without shoes. Now, Ruth's field of dreams. Ruth's field of dreams. It says, at the beginning of the book of Ruth, there was a hunger in Israel, and Elimelech and his family went lagur b'sdei Moab. They went to live in the fields of Moab. Over and over again you have the word Sedei Moab. Sedei Moab. Old palm, the old palm. I get the picture. They went to live b'sdei Moab. What does b'sdei Moab mean? The fields of Moab. Why keep repeating it? It said they went lagur b'sdei Moab, to live in the fields of Moab. And then it says, Vayavo stay Moab. Obviously, Beryl, if they went to live in the fields of Moab, why do you have to say again, Vayavo stay Moab? If they went to live in Moab's field, obviously, Vayavo stay Moab. You can't live in a place unless you come there. Isn't it redundant? And after that, it says, Vayusham. Thank you very much. Lagur stay Moab. They went to live in the fields of Moab. It says they came to the fields of Moab, and by the way, they were there. It seems to be what? Redundant. So what's the answer? The answer is they bought a one-way ticket. Logur b'sdei Moab vayusham. They had no intention of leaving Las Vegas. Moab made Las Vegas look like a kindergarten. Moab was a symbol of immorality. Not enough they went there, they went lagur Sedei Moab, Nachamol Vayusham. So Alfie, they bought a one-way ticket. Not a good idea. What's the answer? You go to Schmutzlaretz, make sure to buy a round-trip ticket. And the Rambam says something incredible. Why did Machlon the Chilyon die? Machlon the Chilyon died. So I would say because they intermarried, right? They married non-Jewish women, but the Rambam doesn't say that. The Rambam, the Hilchas Malachim, chapter 5, Halacha 9 says, Asur lutzet me'eretz Yisrael l'chutz la'aretz la'olam. You can go for a visit to Borough Park, but you can't stay there la'olam. What does olam mean? Forever. You want to go to Borough Park, buy a round-trip ticket. And he says, Machlon v'chilyon gidoy lahador hoyu. They were the leaders of the generation, and they left because there was a hunger, and yet, why did Machlon v'chilyon die? Says Ramban in Hilchas Malachim Perikei, not because they married non-Jewish women, they died because they made Yerida La'olam. They went to stay in Moab, with no intention of coming back. And they were the Gedoy Lahador, says Rambam. It's a big Chil Hashem for the Gedoy Lahador to make Yerida and announce that you're not coming back to Israel. There's such a Chil Hashem that therefore they were Chayiv Mitah. Where's the Rambam coming from? He's quoting Tractate Bub Metzia, page 91, where the Rashbi says, Elimelech Machlon the Kilyon Gedoy Lahador hoyu. They were the Gedoy Lahador, the Gedoylim. B'nei Ma'anenshu, why were they all punished with death? Says the Rashbi, B'nei Sheyotzu me'eretz Yisrael l'chutz la'aretz. You hear? Because they left Eretz Yisrael l'chutz la'aretz, they bought a one-way ticket with no intention of what? Coming back. It's a Chil Hashem for Gedoy Lahador to do that, and therefore they died. Not for marrying non-Jewish women. So says the Rashbi, Tractate Bava Basra, page 91, and the Rambam codifies it in his halacha book. He said you can leave Israel, but not la'olam. So therefore, you better make sure to buy a round-trip ticket. What? Pretty interesting. What could they be thinking? Gedoy Lahador. How could they go to Borough Park? I mean to Moab. Moab was a symbol of immorality.
Yeah.
Now, over and over again, Aaron, you have the word Bisdei Moab, Bisdei Moab, Nochamol Bisdei Moab. What is that? What's the message? This story is not just about Ruth. It's about each and every one of us, Mordechai.
Materialism.
Where do we choose to fulfill our field of dreams? Which field do we choose to fulfill our dreams? Is it Sedei Moab, Chas v'Shalom, or Sedei Pisgat Zev? Ooh, you make the call. This is, if you build it, he will come. Who said that? So over and over again, you have the word in the Megillah, Nachabol, Sedei Moab, Sedei Moab. Machlon chose to fulfill his field of dreams where? In Moab. Ruth, she chose to fulfill her field of dreams in the Sedei Boaz. Michael, every one of us has dreams in life. Where do we choose to fulfill our dreams? You make the call. So, Ruth's husband, buddy, oil of Afuch, you ever drink a cafe Afuch? Ruth's husband, the Gedolah, he came from the fields of Israel, but he chose to fulfill his dream from where? In the fields of Las Vegas. His wife, the Moabite go-go dancer, who she was, she chose to fulfill her dreams in the fields of Boaz. You make the call. You choose, Mordechai, where to fulfill your field of dreams.
Would she have come without her mother-in-law?
Would you? Oh, we're going to get into that now. Do you mind passing these papers out, one to a customer? It's one paper. It's one paper with two sides. Megillat Ruth, Pasuk K, you have it? The side Megillat Ruth. V'yoyim Boaz, v'yoyim Kenoscha, Hasadeh. Again, you have the word Hasadeh, which is repeated over and over again. Hasadeh. Where did he choose to fulfill our dreams in life? Field of dreams. In the Sadeh Moab or in the Sadeh of Pisgat Zev? All of us have to make the choice that Machlon and Ruth made, but they chose the opposite. They chose the opposite, didn't they? Just amazing. What a contrast between Ruth and her husband. Machlon ran away from Eretz Yisrael, right? But Ruth ran to Eretz Yisrael. Oh. You make the call.
His father was the one.
What? Okay, but they were grown-ups. After the father died, they could have come back to Pisgat Zev. They chose to remain Bisdei Moab, to fulfill their dreams, field of dreams in Sedei Moab. And Ruth, who came from Moab, Avram, Moshe Kapaya, she chose to fulfill her field of dreams in Sedei Eretz Yisrael. So the book of Ruth, each one of us is writing, whether we know it or not, each one of us is writing what? Our own Megillah. Each one of us is writing our own Megillah. There's a pasuk in the book of Malachi, Vayikotev Sefer Zikaron Lefanav L'Yira Hashem. All of us, whether we know it or not, are writing our own Megillah. And after 120 years, God will read it back to us. Pretty interesting. That a person, through doing acts of chesed and living in Israel, can become part of Tanakh. Ruth, who came from Moab, the symbol of immorality, through her wise choice in life, choosing correctly the field of dreams, she became part of Tanakh. Look what a person can make of himself. Even though she was born on the wrong side of the tracks, through her individual choice in life, she became part of Tanakh. Megillat Ruth, from the word Reut. What does Reut mean? Friend of God. Friend of Naomi. So the Ramban tells us something amazing about this little book. Each and every one of us has to make the choice in life that Ruth chose. Look at the page in front of us, please. Pasuk Hey on top, Vayoma Boaz, V'yom Kenoscha Hasadeh. Again, the field of dreams. And you have the word shame again. Shame Hamet al Nachlato. The word shame is repeated. The word name. Over and over again, you have two words repeated in the book. The word name and the word field. The Ramban says a name in Hebrew is your identity in life. A person's identity, his mission is contained in his name. So the two words are repeated, Michael. Name and field. What's the message? Where do we choose to fulfill our identity in life? Which field? The fields of Moab, Chas v'Shalom, or the fields of Eretz Yisrael? We have to choose where to fulfill our name, i.e. our identity. Oh.
Sprecher.
You make the call, yes?
What's very interesting is how Moshe, Aaron, and Miriam were all buried in Moab.
Excellent. Oh, Mordechai. You're right. Moshe, Aaron, and Miriam all are buried somewhere in Moab. That's a very good question. Why were they buried in Moab? So the Medrash says to Mechapel Benos Moab. I want to get sidetracked, Mordechai, but you asked a good kasha. Why should Moshe and Aaron and Miriam be buried of all places in Las Vegas? Moab. So the Medrash says, Lechaper al chet shel benot Moab. Since the Jewish people sinned with the wild Moabite women, mass orgies, can you imagine? 40 years after we left Egypt, Alfie, we saw all the great miracles for 40 years, and we committed mass immorality with the wild Moabite women. Never trust yourself. So the Medrash says Moshe and Aaron and Miriam were buried there, lechaper al chet shel benot Moab. Okay? Somehow, being buried there is a kapara for the sin of benot Moab. There's a lot more to talk about, but I don't want to get sidetracked now. Let's what?
You said about the Shem.
Shem, the name.
Let me
The identity. Go ahead.
The Talmud says there are three names that a person has.
Right.
One that you get when you're born, Shmer or whatever.
Right.
A name that the other people
Call you.
And Ruth had a name that she
Became Ruth, the Reyut person.
Yes.
Right? The lover of God and the lover of the Jewish people. But what's in a name? Look at Pasuk Yud, Avram. You have Pasuk Yud? Vigam es Ruth HaMavia Eshet Machlon. Can you imagine giving your kid a name like Machlon? Machlon means sickness. Sickness, time for din-din. Sickness. Your lunch is getting cold. Imagine calling your kid, Reb Zalman, Machlon. Sickness. The word Machlon could mean Machala, but it could also mean Mechila. You choose in life how to live up to your name. Does Machlon have to mean sickness, spiritual sickness, by marrying a non-Jewish woman and leaving Eretz Yisrael? Or Machlon is also the word Mechila. What does Mechila mean? Forgiveness. We have to choose. Because a person ate Sadas Tovara. That's our choice in life. He chose wrongly. Ruth chose correctly. Now this simple book is far from being simple. Look at Pasuk Yud Gimel. Vayikach Boaz es Ruth. Boaz married Ruth, Vatilo liisha, and she became his wife. See Pasuk Yud Gimel, Rabbi Yaakov, it seems to be redundant. Pasuk Yud Gimel, you with me? Vayikach Boaz es Ruth. Boaz married Ruth, Vatilo liisha, and she became what? Well, obviously, if you marry a woman, she's your wife. she was already Jewish? The answer is Mordechai.
He gave her chalitza.
And there's no chalitza here, that's a mistake. We'll talk about it. Chalitza is only for a brother. Boaz married Ruth, and she became his wife. So the Talmud learns from here that the Jewish marriage is what? Two parts. Kiddushin and Nesuin. It's halacha. Vayikach Boaz, that's the Kiddushin. Vatilo Liisha, that's the Nesuin. Every Jewish marriage consists of what, Beryl? You ever wonder why you read the ketubah in the middle of the chuppah? Who's listening anyway? The caterer is not ready yet. Why do you read the ketubah? No one is listening anyway. The answer is to make a demarcation between what? The kiddushin and the nesuin. So you interrupt to show that the Jewish marriage ceremony consists of two stages. So therefore, after the kiddushin, you read the ketubah, and the next part is what? The nesuin. Where do you learn that kiddushin has two stages? Marriage from the pasuk here. Yikach Boaz, Vatilo Liisha. Okay, Vatilo Liisha. Interesting, huh? So they get married, right? They get married, and Ruth becomes pregnant. The Talmud says something incredible. That night, Boaz died. What a way to go. Can you imagine the headlines in the Jewish press? Chief Rabbi, Boaz was the shofet, the chief rabbi of Israel. Chief rabbi of Israel found dead on honeymoon night with the former go-go dancer from Moab. I mean, can you imagine the headlines?
Does anyone know
It would be great.
You know who Moab was? Moab is the symbol of immorality, of incest. Wagging tongues, the reporters had a field day of our own. Boaz was 80 years old.
How old was Ruth?
Ruth was 40. So, God tells the prophet Yeshayahu, Ki lo machshavotai machshavotechem, v'lo darchechem drachai. The way God looks at it is completely different than when we look at it. Says the Talmud, Boaz's time was up. He lived a full life. He was 80 years old. He was supposed to die the day before. God kept him alive, Moshe, one extra night to plant the seed of the Melech HaMoshiach in the womb of Ruth, and then beat me up, Scotty. But the way we look at it is totally different. We never know the whole story behind the story. Only he does. To the wagging tails, it looked like it was an onesh. Well, you 80-year-old chief rabbi marrying this Moabite, former Moabite princess. Right?
Pliny was probably justified.
Pliny said, you see? Good thing I didn't go for her. Right? But the Medrash says that's not the way God saw it. No. He was supposed to die the day before. Ben Shmonim is a Ben Shmonim. God kept him alive one extra night to plant the seed of Mashiach, and then he went home. So therefore, we have no right to judge anybody. We never know the story behind the story. Only he knows. That's right. And Boaz's wife died the same day that Ruth and Naomi came back. The Winky Dinky. It's an amazing puzzle. She went to glean, Batalake, again the word Basodeh. You don't have it on your sheet. Batalake Basodeh, Vayike Mikra, Hasodeh Boaz. What does Mikra mean? It happened to be in Boaz's field as she went to glean. The word Mikra looks like a coinky dinky. But you rearrange the letters Mikra, what do you get? Rachmei Hashem. She just happened to stumble on whose field? Boaz. It looked like a coincidence. But that's only a facade.
Didn't Yibum come into it?
No. Rav Zalman, no, it's not Yibum. Yibum is it's a mistake. Yibum is only for a dead brother. Boaz was not a brother of Machlon. He was a cousin. Yibum is only by a brother.
That was a relative of hers.
Tov was an uncle. But again, not a brother. There's no Yibum over here. People make a mistake. Let me get the story here. There's a mitzvah in the Torah that if a person is very poor and he can't afford to make the payments to the bank for his field, there's a mitzvah for a living relative to make the payments and redeem the field for him. That's a mitzvah in the Torah. Tov was a relative, Boaz was a relative, so that's a mitzvah to redeem the field of Machlon from the creditors. It's an extra act of chesed, Boaz says, to also marry the widow. It's not a mitzvah, because Yibum is only for a dead brother. Machlon was not a dead brother to Tov or to Boaz. It's just a relative. There's a mitzvah to redeem Machlon's field from the creditors. But Boaz added an attachment to do an act of chesed, also to marry Machlon's widow. But that's not a mitzvah, that's just an act of chesed. Tov refused. He was called Tov. He refused to do that chesed to marry Machlon's widow. It's not a mitzvah, not Yibum, it's an act of chesed. So therefore, from Tov, he became Ploni Almoni, Mr. Anonymous. He was Tov, but when he turned down this act of chesed, the mitzvah, and also the act of chesed, the mitzvah to redeem the field, and to marry the widow, from Tov he became Ploni Almoni. What does Ploni Almoni mean? John Doe. You hear? He was a closer relative. He was an uncle. Boaz was only a cousin. He could have been the sub of Melech HaMashiach. But he turned it down. So he became Mr. Anonymous. What? He became Mr. Anonymous. Ploni Almoni. Again, let's get back to the text over here. So, Ruth gives birth to the baby. See Pasuk Yud Gimel? You got Boaz says Ruth, Natilo Liisha, Pasuk Yud Gimel. Yovel el Yiten Hashem lo herayon, Vatelet ben. Hashem allowed her to get pregnant, Vatelet ben. The Talmud in Tainus says that God chooses to run the world through messengers. What are the messengers called? Malachim. 3 tasks God chooses to do alone. One is pregnancy and childbirth, Tchiat HaMesim and Geshem. How do you know that God doesn't hand off the mission of pregnancy to a malach? Vayiten Hashem lo heroyon. Not through an angel. God chooses to run the world, buddy, through malachim. Doesn't have to, but he chooses. 3 tasks he does alone. One of them is Vayiten Hashem lo heroyon vatelet ben. So Mazel Tov, Ruth had a baby. Boaz didn't live to see it.
What are the tasks?
3 tasks. Gora Tainus daf bed. 3 tasks God chooses to do alone: pregnancy and childbirth, Geshem and Tchiat HaMeitim. That he chooses to do himself. But that's a whole different discussion why. Anyway, so Ruth had the baby, right? Look at Pasuk Tezayin. See Pasuk Tezayin? Vatikach Naomi at Ayeled. Naomi took the baby. Huh? Vatishitehu becheka. Vatishitehu becheka. She nursed the baby in her bosom. The word shtiyah. The Alta Baba became what? Vatihi loy loy omenet. The Alta Baba became, what is it omenet in Hebrew? Nursemaid. So the Ramban wonders, why did God do this miracle? Vatishitehu becheka. She gave the baby shtiyah, milk from her own breast. Is that normal? She's not the birth mother, she's the Alta Baba. Why did God make this miracle that Naomi breastfed the baby? A Jew answers Akasha. Look at Pasuk Yud Zayin. Moshe, you want to read Pasuk Yud Zayin? Ashkenot. Say what? Yulad ben Lenomi. Wait a minute. Yulad ben Lenomi. it should have said, Yulad ben Ruth. So I gave you the pshat interpretation earlier in this year. Now we're going to get Kabbalistic here. I'm over 40, so we can talk. The Ramban says something incredible. How come it says Yulad ben Lenomi? Says that's the Poshet pshat. But the Ramban is giving the Kabbalistic interpretation. Yulad ben Lenomi. Naomi recognized that this baby is her dead son, Machlon. Yulad ben Lenomi. It's not a typo, Rabbi Yaakov. Vatikreno Shema Oved. She called the name Oved. Who's the she? Naomi. Who names the children? The women. Women are more spiritual. Women are more in touch with their neshama. They're more qualified to look at the baby, Michael, and identify the baby's mission in life, which is contained what? In the name. So Naomi recognized that this baby is her dead son, Machlon, recycled. What business is God in, Rav Zalman? The soul repair business. Oh, the recycling business, Alfie. The recycling business. Ooh. And therefore, says the Ramban, why did God make this miracle? That Naomi's breast filled up with milk, and she became the baby's wet nurse. Why did God do that miracle? To prove the doctrine of reincarnation, Harold. Yet the Ramban says God doesn't do miracles for nothing. The reason that God allowed Naomi's breast to fill up with milk, even though she's the Alta Baba, and not the birth mother, she wasn't the surrogate mother, was she? To demonstrate the principle of Gilgal. So God made this miracle, that this child, that Ruth was the biological mother, but the neshama was Naomi's dead son, Machlon. Wow. Gee. So God is in the recycling business, or the soul repair business. But the Tikrena Shema Oved. And she called his name Oved. He was Machlon, Machala. He was spiritually sick. He left Israel. He went to Las Vegas. He married a non-Jewish woman. He was spiritually sick. But God brought him back, and he became Oved. What does Oved mean?
Servant to
The Eved Hashem. He became the grandpa of what? It ain't over till it's over.
Wasn't Ruth able to breastfeed?
What?
Wasn't Ruth
That's a good question, Alfie. How come Ruth didn't breastfeed her own child? The Ramban says, why did Hashem make this miracle for Naomi? Why didn't Ruth raise and nurse her own baby? Was Ruth a surrogate mother? Said the Ramban, the secret is Gilgal. The secret is Gilgal. Said the Ramban, in fact, all of the 24 books of Tanakh, this one is the most explicit of Gilgal, said the Ramban. Why dafka in the book of Ruth? Yulad ben Lenomi, says the Ramban, because the book of Ruth is a book about a ger. Says the Ramban, every ger is a Gilgal. Every ger is a Gilgal. What does that mean? A Yiddish neshama that got verblunget, Moshe. Said the Ramban, a Yiddish neshama that got verblunget. And then once the tikkun is made, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Ruth was a Gioris, right? She must have been a Yiddish neshama that got verblunget. So therefore, the book of Gerut, the book of Ruth, the Torah chose to teach the doctrine of Gilgal, said the Ramban, because every Ger Tzedek is actually a Gilgal, a Yiddish neshama. He has to find his shame, his identity. He has to make his tikkun. So dafka in the book about Gerut, because a ger is a Gilgal of a Jew. He needs a tikkun. So therefore the doctrine of Gilgal is taught where? In the book of Ruth, which deals about Gerut, Pretty amazing.
Some people say that Ruth was a reincarnation of Rachel.
Ruth was a reincarnation of Lot. You got to see this. I didn't write it for you, but you can look it up yourself. Peri Gimel Pasuk Zayin. Incredible. The Ari says that Ruth was a Gilgal of Lot. Who was Lot? Her great-great-grandpa. You see that the Neshamas are what, Moshe? AC/DC.
Bisexual.
A bisexual. Look at this incredible verse. I didn't copy it, Kabbalah. But if you go home, you look at Peri Gimel, Pasuk Zayin. It says, Vayochal Boaz, Vayesh, Tayitav Libo, Vayovel Lishkav Diktsei Orema, Vatovoi Balat. She came Balat. She snuck up on him. Remember? Surprise! Vatovoi Balat. Avram. Balat in Hebrew means sewed. She came with the secret. Says there, which secret did she come? She was what? Vatovai Balat, says the Megillah. She came with the secret. Lat in Hebrew means sewed. What's the secret, Michael? That she was the reincarnate soul of her great-great-grandpa, Lot. Vatovai Balat. Says the Ari something incredible. Remember, Abraham said to Lot, "He pored no me alai." What did Abraham say to Lot? Get lost, right? He pored no me alai. Separate. What should Lot have said? Never, uncle. I can't leave you. So Lot failed. He failed, and he left. Centuries later, he gets recycled, and now he's tested again. Naomi this time says to him, her, I mixed up. Him, her. Get lost. This time, what does she say? No way. Verut dafka ba. Devek. She came to be mitakein the chet of her Lot, alias, Michael, alias, Tova Balat. Lot failed, but he left his uncle. So now she comes back. He comes back. I'm confused. He said, she said. This time, she passed with living colors. Verut dafka ba. The word devek. Pretty interesting, huh? Looks like a simple book, huh? Now, I think you're still a little skeptical. So if you look at the book of Ruth, I didn't copy it, but you get home, you see, Perik Aleph in the book of Ruth. It says, Vatosh Perik Aleph Pasuk Chav Bet. You don't have it. Vatoshav Naomi Berut Kalota Ima Hashava Mistei Moav. It says, Naomi and Ruth, her daughter-in-law, returned from the field of Moab. Talmud says returned twice. Vatoshav Naomi Berut, Hashava Nestei Moab. Who returned from the fields of Moab. Who returned to Israel? Who? Naomi. How could it say Ruth returned? Ruth was never in Pisgat Zev.
Because she was loaded.
Oh, Rebaro. Vatoshav Hashava. So it looks like only Naomi returned to Israel, because she came from Israel. How could it say that Ruth also returned from Moab, when Ruth was never in Eretz Yisrael? But Rabbi says she was. When she was loved, she was in Israel. So therefore, Vatashav, Ruth Hashava Mistei Moab. Ruth was never in Eretz Yisrael. How could she return? When she was loved, she was in Eretz Yisrael. Oh. So look how many hints you have.
Why does it say it twice?
Once for Naomi and once for Ruth. Vatashav, the Ruth Hashava.
Wait a second.
If you read the English, you get mixed up. It says, Naomi and Ruth returned. Then it says, again, Ruth returned.
Yeah, but you also-
Returned to send up. What do you mean returned?
Yeah, but you surprised.
Ruth couldn't return. She was never in Israel. Tzachman says return twice, Mordechai. Once Naomi returned, because she came from Pisgat Zed, Bethlehem. And Ruth also returned, because when she was loved, she was in Israel. Then she got verblunget. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome.
Rabbi,
The tense.
Go ahead.
One is future and one is past.
Vatoshav Hashava.
does this imply that all souls are connected
One
to
is
the
one is
land?
future, one is past.
Right, Vatoshav means, yeah, and Hashava means,
So Naomi will return, right?
right,
And one return.
one returns.
So,
Return to sit, right?
So what I'm trying to say, that if she returned, she had already been there, correct?
Right, excellent,
But you know,
excellent.
it would have been much more interesting if it just said Hashav.
Yeah, but it says Hashavah.
Hashav is a vav,
Vatoshav Naomi Beruth.
not future.
Then it says Hashavah Misdei Moab.
Hashav is not future.
What's Vatoshav?
When there's a vav, it becomes a vav.
No.
Shava, return.
So Naomi and Ruth returned from Moab, and then it says Hashavah Misdei Moab. Hashavah. Who returned Misdei Moab. So it says return twice. Once for Naomi and once for Ruth, even though Ruth never returned, because she was never here, or was she? Only what? Atovai Balat. So she came with this, the word Lat in Hebrew is the soul. Said the Ari HaKadosh, the secret is that she was Lot. She came to be Metakein when Lot failed the test. He should have said, Uncle Abraham, I could never leave you. But he said, okay, Uncle, goodbye. You think you didn't break Abraham's heart?
And he went to Moab.
He went to Moab, in Sodom. Ay, ay, ay. But it ain't over till it's over. Who said that?
Rabbi Sprecher, then who is Balak?
What?
Balak.
Balak. Balak was the grandfather of what? Of Ruth. Balak, the king of Moab, was the grandfather of what? Of Ruth. Pretty interesting, huh? Now, if you read the book of Ruth, there's so many unbelievable things over here. Boaz says to Ruth, Yishalem Hashem pa'olech. You don't have it inside, I didn't copy it. But if you look at Perik Bet, you get on Perik Bet, Posuk Yud Bet, Yishalem Hashem pa'olech, utuhi maskurtech shalema. May your maskoret. This is Boaz speaking to Ruth. May your maskoret be shalema. What does that mean?
Okay, full pay.
Says the Medrash al tikra shlema el shlomo. There are no dots in the Tanakh. He gave her bracha that you will live to see Shlomo HaMelech. And the Talmud Bavasra says that she lived to see her great-great-grandson Shlomo on the throne. That's my boy!
Didn't you have a cheer for
Yeah, the Talmud says that he had a special throne for the Alta Baba Ruth.
Where is it, Baba Basra?
It's Baba Basra, I don't remember the page. Yishav Hashem Pa'olech, because Boaz gave her a bracha. Your maskoret will be Shlema, which can also be read what? Shlomo. That she was Marich Yomim, can you imagine? She lived to see her great-great-grandson on the throne. And he had a special throne next to him for Grandma Ruth.
What about David?
She was no spring chicken at the time.
What about David?
David, of course, but even Shlomo. But even Shlomo. That's right. Eza Naches. That's my grandchildren, kingies. Pretty amazing. Can you imagine? Now, so Ruth says, only Hamavet Yafid Beni Benecha. Only death will separate me. She was matakin the chet of what? When she was Lot. Now, why did we read the book of Ruth on Chag Matan Torah? There are many reasons, you know. We read the passage of Chikotai, Eila Chukim v'Mishpatim v'Hatorot, that we received 2 Torahs on Har Sinai, right? We said why, right? Because when God offered us the Torah, we asked him, how much does it cost?
Free.
And God said it's free, so we said we'll take 2, right? So we got Bahatorot. It says in Bachakosai that God gave us Bahar Sinai. So why do you read the book of Ruth on Chag Matan Torah? To demonstrate that we got 2 Torahs. Because if you only read the Torah Shebiksav, it says, Lo Yavai Almoni Mayavi B'Kal Hashem. In the Word 23, it says that an Ammonite and a Moabite can never marry into the Jewish people. Doesn't make no difference between Zochar and Kev Avram. So if you just have the written Torah, there's no way that what? That Boaz could marry Ruth. That means Mashiach could never be born. Right? Thank God we also got the oral Torah. Because the Torah Shabbat Peh tells us in Yevomis, page 76, that what? She'isr chal rak al mayavi v'lo mayavit. Yevomis, right? Only the males are banned from marrying into the Jewish people. But the ban does not extend to females. So Megillat Ruth is the dugma that Chag HaShvuot, we also got what? Torah Shabbat Peh. Because without Torah Shabbat Peh, there would be no Megillat Ruth. Ruth could never marry Boaz if we only got 1 Torah. Mashiach could never be born. But the Torah Shabbat Peh, that gives us the Pitoron L'Baya. Yimor Yevonis I involved. That the Isra is only on the males and not on the females. So, therefore, we read Megillat Ruth that Chag Shavuos is Gam Chag Matan Torah Shel Baal Peh. And 1 second, and the Talmud Yerushalmi says that Torah Shel Baal Peh Chaviva Yoter LaKudosh Baruch Hu MiTorah Shebiktav. Why is Torah Shel Baal Peh more beloved to God than Torah Shebiktav? Says Yerushalmi Peah. Because in Torah Shebiktav, Mashiach would never be born. If you only have the written Torah, there's no way that Ruth will become Rebbetzin Boaz. So therefore, Torah Shabbat Peh is more beloved to God. Because in Torah Shabbat Peh, you have the Pitoron to the Bayah, that the Isser is only on males and not females. That's nowhere in the written Torah. That's only in Tractate Yevomis Ayin Vav. So therefore, Torah Shabbat Peh is more precious to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because without the Torah Shabbat Peh, there ain't no Messiah. Who are we waiting for?
But Ruth was Jewish when he married her.
Ruth was Jewish. How do we know that she was Jewish? You're right, because Ruth tells her, Yishalem Hashem Po'alech, Ne'im Hashem Elahei Yisrael, Asher bod lachsot tachat kenafav. That you have come to seek shelter underneath the wings of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So she was already Jewish at this stage. You have come to seek shelter under the wings of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why does he say tachas kenafav? Because we're going to read on Shavuos morning, God says, Ve'ese eschem al kanfei nisharim. God says, I carried you what? On eagle's wings. So Rashi says, why is that the metaphor? Because an eagle carries its young on the shoulder. Saying, better let the arrow and the Scud missiles pierce me and not my children. So Rashi says that the Amud Anan, that's the Kanfei Nisharim, the Amud Anan, that intercepted the missiles that the Egyptians were firing at the Red Sea, the catapults. So God says, I intercepted the missile. What's Operation Iron Dome called in Hebrew? Amud Anan. The original Iron Dome. That's God's Kanfei Nisharim, the original Iron Dome. God said, I'm like the eagle. Let the arrows pierce me, and not my precious children. So therefore God calls himself Kanfei Nisharim. That's in Givat Shol. So therefore Boaz picks off the metaphor, you have come, lachso tachat knafav shel hashchina. That's the Iron Dome, Amud Anan, yes?
Also, the whole thing with the conversion process back then is not like what it is today. Remember, she went through Naomi.
Yeah, if Ruth lived today, would she be a convert? They make it very hard today. Good thing she lived in those days. There weren't so many obstacles, right? Yes?
Torah Shabbat is like you said, because Matan Torah is the holiday where we study Torah Shabbat. Even the Tikkun we also
But we read Megillat Ruth, that demonstrates the other Torah. Otherwise, Ruth could never have married Boaz. Mashiach would never have been born. Pretty interesting, right?
Question, in Matan Torah, it says, didn't we get the Aseres Dibrot on Matan Torah?
Well, how many letters are on the Ten Commandments?
Why are we saying that we got the
20.
Torah? We didn't get
The Balaturim answers your question. He says there are 620 letters in the Ten Commandments. Each letter represents a mitzvah. The 613 Torah and even the 7 rabbinic mitzvot were also said at Matan Torah, but in a coded way. Later on, Moshe deciphered it. But the 620 letters of the Ten Commandments, Rabbi Yaakov, contain, no coincidence, it's 620 letters. Each letter corresponds to a Torah mitzvah, or even the 7 rabbinic mitzvahs were also encoded in what?
So you're saying that
In the Aseret. There's no such thing as 10 Commandments. It never says 10 Commandments. That's the movie. It says Aseret HaDvarim. The book is better than the movie. It says Aseret HaDvarim. The 10 things. Or the 10 sayings. Not 10 Commandments. There's 620.
So you're saying
Taryag plus 7, Harold. So the movie got it wrong. It never says 10. It says Aseret HaDvarim. 10 sayings or 10 things.
you counted the letters? There's 600?
Yes.
Yeah.
The Balaturim was right on the money.
So in other words, at that point when
620 letters.
when he revealed himself on Shavuos,
On Shavuos,
when did we receive, on what day did we receive the first two mitzvahs? The first two Dibor.
Rashi explains, God spoke all of the Seret HaDibros b'Dibor Echad, right?
On what day?
On the Shavuos. And then, as he started to repeat it, the Jews said after the second one, Alfie, time out. He spoke all 10 b'Dibor Echad, which is the human ear is impossible to what? So why did God, the one who invented the human ear, knows that we have enough trouble hearing what? So why did God speak all 10 b'Dibor Echad? Says the Maral that you can't tamper with it. It's a package deal. It's whether you understand it or not. The whole Torah is one package deal. Take it or leave it. If you try to tamper with it, the whole thing becomes what? So therefore, even if you don't understand it, you have to accept it. Therefore, he spoke all 10 b'Dibor Echad, and then as he repeated it, once he got to the second one, we said we can't take it. We were so overwhelmed with love, awe, and fear that our neshamas jumped out of our bodies to get reunited, and it feels so good. But God says, down boy, you have a mission to do down here, you're not ready yet. We called time out. Can you imagine? Yes?
Tomorrow, I heard that it's the 10 words that created.
What? Very good, Michael. The Mishnah says that Asara Mamorat Nivra Olam. God created the universe with 10 sayings. The Maral Miprak says that each of the 10 commandments corresponds to what? To the 10 sayings that God used to what? Which correspond to the 10 makot. We're all connected. 10 makot, 10 sayings, 10 dibrot. The Maral says they're all connected to each other, yes?
Please enumerate the Sheva mitzvot of the Rabbanot.
Sheva mitzvot the Rabbanan, okay?
Candle lighting.
Candle lighting Friday night.
Hanukkah.
Chanukah.
Megillah says
Purim.
Purim.
Making brachot.
Erevin.
Erevin. Beautiful. Netilat Yadayim.
And Megillah.
No, we said that. No, wait. Netilat Yadayim. And Hallel on Yom Tov. Huh?
Allah Yantav is one?
Mrs. Ziegler, you asked a bum kasha from Bomland. Ooh. She asked a bum kasha. Moshe, you got to hear this. One of the 7 rabbinic mitzvahs is to read Megillat Esther. I think you stumped me. You hit a home run. We read Megillat Ruth on Shavuos, and we make a bracha. Asher kirishanu b'mitzvoisa b'tzivanu al mikra Megillah. The same bracha you make when?
Purim.
On Purim. So what a bomb kasha. I think I'm stumped. Sharona, you hear this? They asked Rabbi Reuben this bomb kasha. So the rabbis count reading the Megillah on Purim as a mitzvah, and we make Asher Kirishonu v'mitzvoisa tzivanu al mikra Megillah, and that's one of the 7 rabbinic mitzvahs. Rav Ziegler asked the bomb kasha, what about Megillat Ruth on Shavuos? We also make a bracha when you read from a klaf. You make the same bracha, Harold, and yet it's not counted as rabbinic mitzvah. Help!
Maybe because it's already.
How come I never thought of that?
Because it's already embedded with the.
Which one? There are 7 rabbinic mitzvot, just like there's a mitzvah to read the Megillah on Purim, so there should be another mitzvah to read the Megillah when? And yet we make that bracha if you read it from a cloth buddy, and yet it's not counted as what?
Because Shavuos is the young.
As what?
You know why? Because Shmuel wrote it.
Shmuel wrote it.
Within the canonization of all the other of the Torah. In other words, the others are outside of the Torah.
But for some reason, Rabbi, it's only a minhag to read Megillat Ruth on Shavuos, unlike Megillat Esther, which is a din.
Sfardim.
Don't read Megillat Ruth. So it's a minhag. But why do you make the same bracha that you make on Mikra Megillah Purim? If it's only a minhag, I'm stumped, Rabbi Yaakov.
If it's a
We
minhag,
know
you don't even say
that
bracha.
you don't make a bracha on a minhag. Only on a mitzvah. So Megillat Ruth is only what? A minhag. Why do we have a right to make the bracha that we make on Megillat Esther? The same bracha, buddy. Listen, 4:30 in the morning. We're going to read it from a klaf. We'll make the same bracha that we make on Megillat Esther, and we know you're only allowed to make a bracha what? On a din, not on a minhag. And Megillat Ruth is only a minhag. So there are 2 questions here. Why did the rabbis only leave it as a minhag, unlike Purim? And if it's only a minhag, what right do we have to ask? I'm stumped, Mrs. Ziegler. You stumped me live on candid camera. You stumped me.
I've been stumped for 27 years.
Huh? The miracle happened on Purim. But is there a greater miracle here that from a Moabite princess comes the Melech HaMashiach? Can there be a greater miracle than that? From the depths of immorality comes the Mashiach. Moab, the symbol of immorality. What kind of greater miracle is that? That the Mashiach has to come doctor from Las Vegas? Huh? That's also only a minhag. The din is only Megillat Nayaman Ishtan and Megillat Esther from the Koheles. When you read Koheles on Sukkot from a klaf, you also make the bracha. You read Shir Hashirim on Pesach from a klaf, you also make a bracha. But Ashkenazim will read from a klaf, make a bracha. The question is, why are they allowed to? It's only a minhag when the din is only what? Megillat Esther. And for some reason the rabbis didn't make it a mitzvah.
I'll answer you why.
Bakasha, no?
Because Megillah is a Sada Shabbos. So Megillah's root is comparable to Megillah's Esther. Number 2, Kimu v'Kiblu b'Megillah, they really accepted what was originally one of the 7 mitzvahs.
So Megillah Esther is different. Well, what am I, chopped liver? I mean, Megillat Ruth. So if it's only a minhag, why make a bracha? The same bracha you make on Mikra Megillah, like you make on Megillat Esther. That's food for thought. When you're eating a cheesecake on Shavuos, we should contemplate. Now let me tell you, before you leave, I want to tell you, there's a minhag to eat cheese blintzes on Shavuos. Every Jewish minhag, Harold, is kadosh. Why is there a minhag to eat cheese blintzes? My favorite. Tzedek Sam Sprecher, blintzes are eggs, and cheese are chalav. Tzedek Sam Sprecher, the Gemara in Choros, page 6 says, how you allowed to eat chalav? It's Eva min achai. Elsie the cow is still alive. So the Gemara answers yes. But since the Torah says Eretz Zoros Chol Vash, the Torah praises Israel with milk. So the Torah is giving you a special heta to eat milk, because it wouldn't praise Israel with a forbidden food. When did the Yidden hear that pasuk? A land flowing with milk and honey. Matan Torah. So the heta to eat milk was only when we heard that pasuk, a land flowing with milk. That heta we got Shavuos morning, Matan Torah. So to commemorate the first time we drank milk from a living cow, therefore we what? Eat milk. Tosis the Chulin asked, how are you allowed to eat scrambled eggs? I love scrambled eggs. The chicken is still alive. The chicken is still alive. Says Tosis the Chulin, yes. But since there's a mitzvah of Shluach HaKen, there's a mitzvah to send away the mama bird and take the eggs. So the Torah is giving you a heter to eat eggs. When do we eat the mitzvah Shluach HaKen? When, Beryl?
Matan Torah.
Matan Torah. So before that, we couldn't eat no eggs. Evim min achai. And we couldn't drink no milk. Evim min achai. We got the heter Shavuos morning. So to commemorate the first time when we ate eggs and milk, said the Sam Sprecher, therefore we eat cheese blintzes. The blintz is what? And the cheese is what? Isn't that incredible? Eggs and milk. Every Jewish minhag Avram is kadosh. So when you're eating the cheese blintzes on Shavuos morning, you have to know why. That's the first time we ate eggs and milk. Says Sam Sprecher, Evim min achai, quoting the Gemara in Bechorot and Tosis and Chulin. Isn't that amazing? That's another story.